I have been talking about the subjects such as letting go or accept. I also talked about emptiness, nothingness, no mind, or past emptiness, things like that. Recently, I also talked about Bodhisattva and Vimalakirti about compassion. Also, Shin Buddhism, Amida Buddha's compassion, absolute compassion. Subject here is death, in Japanese rinju. Rin means face, ju is ending, so rinju is the end of life. And it's not, sounds like an interesting subject, but in terms of the spiritual pursuit and to go beyond the constraint of the mind, what we face, the easiest way to face is to face death or the situation where you cannot have any control. And my awakening experience was like that. That was 20-some years ago. But focusing on death, whether it's literally going to die, or I had a video about the cats, us facing cat's death, that we found the dead cat on the street that we love. All these situations point or shake us. What is this life, the meaning, and what is that we do, or we can do. The bottom line is that we cannot do. That's the definition of death. It's beyond our ability. Even the science, new technology, all of that indicate that death can be overcome. And some people talk about death shouldn't be considered as disease, or the disease shouldn't be considered. No, death shouldn't be considered as a disease because it's fixable. And somehow, whether it's going to be actualized or not, it's another story. But spiritual path is different path from those scientific path. You can wait for the science to catch up. But literally, we have the cats dying, and we face impossible situation in life. So it's a long preamble, but it's important to talk. And I mentioned those elements that I talked about. I've already talked about the letting go, acceptance, emptiness, vast emptiness, no mind, all of that. But specifically, let's get into the saying from Saichi that I'm very fond of. He's talking about now is the time to face death. And one of the poems, waiting to die. Now, that is the moment of death. This is my joy, he says. And he ends with Namu Amidabutsu, which means I let go of myself to take over by Amida Buddha. Because Amida's goal is to help Saichi and all the people who can believe in the help of Amida. So he has gone through that through Shin Buddhist idea of Amida Buddha. Simple idea, and I'm so fascinated because he is happy as he is. Indeed, he says, he can go to the Pure Land and come back to this world. And the Pure Land is after death, meant to be like that in the past. But you have the Pure Land while you're alive. In fact, where we have all the setting here is Pure Land, is the way Buddhists can look into when you are awakened. So that's one of his saying, that he's happy with the facing death, especially when you go through that. That's the point. So we can talk about how we go through it, but let's go through some of the other poems. I have gone through the moment of death, he says, and my funeral, I live in the Pure Land in my mind, yet I am here in this world. Namu Amidabutsu. Next one. No need to wait for my death, the physical death. Now is the moment. Namu Amidabutsu. So it's like a conversion that you can process yourself through this world's suffering to find the peace, Nirvana, while you are here. So it's a death turning into Pure Land, or Nirvana, as you may call it. Actually, there's a little comment by Daisetsu on this. He says, what it says here is to die, or die and live. It is the state of life and death being one. Not one to the other, but you can go back and forth. It's part of the situation, as if the law of universe is prevailing us to be alive and die. So you go with the law of universe. I use the term, ride the wave of universe. And in his case, Daisetsu says, he experienced this, so there's not much about life and death or facing death. Daisetsu also say, the breathing in and out is itself is the root of his existence, connected to the root of existence, and through that, that's his interpretation, he can live or die, as if he's free man to go back and forth. And this mind cannot be explained to others. So he enjoyed this state of being. That's the comment from Daisetsu. Another poem from Saichi. I have gone through the moment of death and my funeral. I live in the Pure Land in my mind, yet I am in this world. Namu Amidabutsu. No need to wait for my death. Now is the moment. I may have repeated some. And there's another guy, Shomatsu, or Shoma we call him. And he's also Myokonin like Saichi. About 150 years ago, somewhere around there. And there are lots of stories, but this one line, I have it here for reference, is that he was found, I forgot the setting behind this, but you're supposed to be in a temple and there's a Amida Buddha's statue, let's say. So you respect that setting, but when he was introduced to this temple, and he felt comfortable, so people may think crazy, but he left comfortable such that he sees Amida Buddha like a parent, or oyasama in Japanese, father or mother term. And he's like a kid that he feels comfortable because of the compassion Amida Buddha, to promise, and he feels the saving by the Amida Buddha. So what people found him is that he went up to the temple close to Nyorai and laid down, and he said, do whatever you like. So that's a total surrender to Amida Buddha. That I shared those examples from Shin Buddhism by Myokonin, and I can share more, but represent one sect of Buddhism pointing that. But I have also posted or recorded this about the Vimalakirti. The topic here was about the Bodhisattva and how Bodhisattva can help people with their compassion. And in there's a notion of emptiness, that the realization of emptiness is to relieve yourself from suffering And Vimalakirti is the one who had gone through the awakening to sense or relate to the vast emptiness or nothingness. And for that, while he says, I suffer because people suffer, but his suffering has a different context, so to speak, because he's not totally like arhat into the Buddhahood, but he's like in between the ordinary man and the awakened person, devoted, they call arhat in the Hinayana, like a Buddha. But he is kind of like a bridge in the gap so that he can have the sense of Nirvana, like in the case of Saichi. But he can see him suffering because he has the mind that he doesn't reject, throw away. So that he feels the pain of people, but he also knows the Nirvana. And the way he talks about in the sutra, Vimalakirti Sutra, and I share this in my video, is that by knowing his feeling of suffering is based upon nothingness, emptiness. So he can keep on working to help people. And the helping people from suffering itself is nothing. Therefore, at the end, what he's doing is to help people to be realized about the end of suffering by realization of emptiness or whatever the way that Vimalakirti can communicate or share the thoughts so that the people start to move this passage of the Buddhahood or Bodhisattva. I shared the video about our world, the society are fake, or our mind is like dream. And I said it is dream. That's the Shosan Suzuki saying. So there's a notion of the feeling and the view of life and death and suffering, but beyond that is the Pure Land or Nirvana. And that's the way this Buddhism, with different avenues, different variety of words to share and communicate. And what about me, if I can just add a few words? I can relate to Saichi's word of I'm indeed a happy man and touch or live in Nirvana and so forth. Because I had the sense of letting go in Vipassana. They call it Satori or Kensho, realization. But I'm like this Vimalakirti, or small scale of Vimalakirti, because I suffer, real suffer. But I have a sense of out of suffering, like Saichi's case. So the Saichi is similar to me. That's what I feel is communicative, that he is happy man, but he can be repenting, and he sees himself like a devil and trouble, that he need the help of Amida Buddha. He goes back and forth, this world and the Nirvana. But that's fantastic to die. And that's the essence of Rinju, facing death in such a manner, at least for some people, maybe not everyone. But that's the part of my journey in the spiritual pursuit, starting from Zen, from early age, and more serious in the last 40 years. And in that 40 years, I also had this experience of Satori, awakening, Kensho, as well as learning of the Saichi and Shoma and others from Myokonin I can relate to that. Everybody's level is different. We may have a brief view or preview or insight of what this Nirvana is like. And I even shared some of the examples that you may find the sunset or some movie. I was referring to the movie called 18 Again. I think George, I forgot his actor's name, but there's a certain movie that give you a wonderful resonating sense connected to the message, and your whole body is kind of like lifted. Or in my case, I had the same in out of the cold water in Malibu surfing, and in the sun I felt great. Aliveness I call waku waku. And that's the peace beyond words expression. And that can happen, you're into the zone, and there's a way for that. So that's the story. And I try to share the way for that in my way, as much as there are many of them, so I wanted to share those. But this is the moment about death and the difficulty we may have in the society, the suffering. And in my case, I was concerned what can be done. But at the end, realization of emptiness, as much as it was explained in Vimalakirti Sutra, or realization of emptiness that I had before, reinforced it is okay. This world is suffering that we feel, and many feel. And if you don't feel, maybe there's something wrong with you. Or very lucky, I don't know. Suffering, everything is impermanent. There's no self, no nothing, emptiness, no mind. And you have Nirvana. Those are the points that we can, and I like to continue my life and posting here, so far as I find it interesting, meaningful, fascinating. So that's the story about facing death, and have fun along the way in the process going forward. Be happy indeed, in and out. Thank you.